Alright, let's try and do this. We're going to try and create an emoji. We're going to take an existing emoji and we are going to recreate it in Adobe Illustrator. One of the cool things about what we're going to be doing is that the emoji we're working from is a PNG. It's a raster image. A raster image is going pixel by pixel and is dependent on resolution. But when we create our emoji in Adobe Illustrator, it will be independent of resolution, and you can blow it up, squeeze it, stretch it. You can do all kinds of things to it, and the resolution will not deteriorate. So the first thing we need to do is we're going to go up to File. For those of you who like key commands, we're going to hit Control New, or just click on New. We're going to set our image size to 7 inches by 7 inches. You'll notice that units over here is selected to inches. Okay, so if I hit OK, then I can do a file, and we are going to save as, and I am just going to save this as nerd, and I'm going to call it nerd1. Let's see how we do with this. Hold on, you probably can't see that. There we go. We'll pull this up. So now I have a save button down here. I'm going to click save. I'm going to say OK, and we have a file saved as nerd1. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go to File and I'm going to Place. What we're going to do is we're going to grab the nerd PNG and we're going to place this in our Illustrator document. So here's where I'm keeping all my stuff. I'm going to grab nerd. I'm going to click on Place. So now that I've clicked that, you'll see that there's some crazy stuff going on here. What is these 3-page icons up there? Not really sure why they have that icon. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but if I click, we now have an instance of the nerd placed in our image. What I'd like for you to do is to make that 4.5 inches wide. How in the world are you going to do that? It seems like kind of random. Not really. What we can do is we can come up here under Transform. You'll notice that there is a chain here. This is unlink, this is link. When the link is clicked, it will constrain both the height and the width if I change one of these. So right now it's selected to 3.5556. If I change that to 4.5, since height and width are both linked, I can hit that number, press enter, voila. If I go back, I can see that my nerd face is now 4.5 inches. So I'm going to move that more or less to the center of my image. And I'm going to hit save again because you never know when you might need to come back to that. So we are saving, and you can see that we've got the spinning wheel of happiness. And we'll see how long that takes. I will come back as soon as we're finished saving. Okay, so we've saved our file. And now the next step is to create a new layer. How do we create a new layer? You come over here in your layer palette, and you're going to come down and you're going to click on the new page icon. And once again, we have the spinning wheel of death. Let's pause this. Alright, so we've got our images placed, and we're going to create a new layer. We're going to come down here, and we're going to click on the new page icon. There we go. So now we've got layer 2. I'm going to come up here and lock layer 1 just so that nothing happens to it. And then I'm going to roll over here to the ellipse tool. This is hidden underneath generally what is started out as the rectangle tool. You'll notice that if we scroll down to the ellipse tool, we can hit L and we can just draw a shape. You don't have to be too worried about everything hitting it exactly. So now we're in layer 2, and we have a shape drawn over top of layer 1. You'll notice that I am still in the layer, or the ellipse tool mode. So if I wanted to try and pull one of these, I can still do this, alright? But I have to be careful because if I click the wrong area, I'm making a new ellipse. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to come back into here, and I am going to make sure that my ellipse exactly covers the nerd's face. Well, maybe a little bit higher there. and that's probably going to be good enough for right now. I'm going to click on the selection tool icon, and then if I come over here to the visibility control for the layer, if I control click on this, you'll notice that now the icon has changed. This is giving me a wireframe view. So if I hit Control plus, I can zoom in a little bit, and I can tuck this little thing down and make sure that that is exactly where it wants to be. So now I'm going to Control click back, and I'm going to move my ellipse away. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the eyedropper tool, and I'm going to click right here where the nerd's nose would be. So we've now got that selected, and you know, there's a darker ring of color around the outside of the nerd's face, and we can get that by coming in and selecting a gradient menu, or this is a gradient palette. So here is the palette. Over here is a gradient tool. Two different things, they both work together. So right now we are in the gradient palette over here. If I click on this, you'll see that I'm changing the stroke color because the stroke is in the foreground, not what we want. So if I click here on the none icon, I have now gotten rid of any stroke that is on here. This is the stroke color. I'm going to click on the foreground color. So now the foreground color is on top. So if I click here, stroke on top, foreground on top. And I'm going to come over and we're going to grab the gradient tool. And if I click here, this yellow, and I'm going to drag this down over top of the end. So what I've got now is yellow on one end and white on the other. I can come over here and grab this yellow. Maybe, maybe not. Nope. Okay, so if I click on this yellow, and I can come over here to the swatches menu, okay? I'm going to drag this down here, and that's going to create a giant orange icon. So if we come back to our gradient menu, I can drag this down over top, right there. We don't need this white one. The best way to get rid of a color out of the gradient menu is to just drag that down. So we're going to drag this all the way to the other side. You'll notice that our gradient menu is set up for a linear gradient. And if we zoom out a little bit, you can see that it's brighter on the right side, and orange on the other side. Watch this. We can go to radial gradient, and now we have a darker center, which is orange, and an outside color, which is more of that lighter orange. Not working for me. If I come over here, there's a neat little thing where I can reverse the gradient. So now we've reversed it, but it's still not looking exactly the way it does on the nerd. Here is a gradient slider at the top. This will change the compression of how that color changes. So now, if I move that over, I've got something a little bit closer to what the nerd looks like. We can pull him back over and just lay that right over top. That is looking pretty darn good. I'm liking that. So now we've got a base color for our face, and ideally I'd like to put in some more stuff here, but I can't see it because it's covered over. So throughout this tutorial, we're going to keep toggling in and out of the visibility. If I hold down the Control key, you'll see that we're back to the wireframe. So now, let's go back to our friend the ellipse tool, and we are going to recreate this reflection. So I just kind of nailed it there. That is just dumb luck. Let's zoom in and see how well I did. Still looking pretty good. And I still have the ellipse tool selected, but since I'm hovering over the handles, I can redefine this. So now we have a shape that could be construed or could be turned into this reflection on the top of the nerd head. The reflection is really cool. It adds a lot of depth. So how would we do that? Well, we can come back over here to our friend the gradient tool. Let's go back to a linear gradient. All right. We're going to move this back about halfway, and let's make this a white color. So how do I make that a white color? I can click here. Tell you what, let's move this out. You can nest your palettes. You'll notice that there is a blue line that shows up sometimes, sometimes not. If I pull this out, I can have this independent of the layer menu, and I can click on the swatch menu. I can drag my swatch color down over white, white over this square, and now we have a white color, and we also have a white color here. So if I went back to my layer menu and I control clicked, let's minimize this so you can see it. If I control click here, I can come back and you'll see, whoa, that's not looking too cool. Watch this. So I click on one of these and we can change the opacity setting all the way down to 0. Alright, so now we have a linear gradient which is changing from left to right. I'm going to change this opacity down to about 70. And now we're going to come over to the gradient tool as opposed to the gradient palette, which I spoke of earlier. And if I hold down the shift key and draw straight down, it will constrain and give me a line. I can hit reverse, and now if I click away from it, voila, I have a gradient that is looking kind of like what we had. So there is our reflection. I think we're going to stop here and we'll continue in another video in a minute.